You guys have me all flustered because you're
I'm so sorry.
comfortable,
No,
and I'm usually
you're doing great.
Okay, all right.
You're gonna be fine.
All right, today we'd like to welcome to the podcast Tom and Ben Kimball, co-owners of Kimball Productions. Tom is the co-founder of Kimball Productions, a Colorado-based video production company he co-owns with his son, Ben. Tom has been a professional producer, director, actor, and published author since 1976. Ben is a professional producer, editor, actor, and writer. That's a lot of, hashes.
It is.
He holds a master's degree in screenwriting from Full Sail Film School. The Kimballs love a good story, and they live to inspire wonder with every story they tell. Thank you for coming.
Oh, thanks for having us. Yeah.
Yay! So usually my first question is, what was your first job? But with both of you,
totally
you were
gonna be
both.
fun.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
do that then. What was your
I
first
like that.
job, and let's tell us about that.
So, all right. There's my first ever job,
Yeah,
and then
that's the ones I liked.
there's my first real job.
Uh-huh.
So my first ever job, I think you would know more about than I would. It was an acting job.
Right. He was 5, I think.
I think, yeah. And
And-
vague fragments of
you probably
memories.
don't remember
Yeah,
that.
don't
Yeah.
really.
And it was a Christmas commercial for, I think, North Glen Mall. And he was this little blonde-haired, towhead kid. And he has to let loose this white dove.
This is an actual dove. This is before CG, so he's real animals on the set.
And PETA,
Yeah,
probably,
yeah,
yes.
they were probably no. This is before PETA. No, I don't know actually.
I don't know.
It did poop on me. The animal was not harmed. I was harmed emotionally in some way.
So he lets the poopless bird go.
That's right.
And then they do the slow-mo and
Yeah.
The sort of overlapping
Yeah.
kind of translucent picture, and he's looking up if you go to shop at the mall, you're gonna see birds or something.
I don't know.
or
What
you're
I
gonna
have
die.
no idea
It's
how
gonna
that
be
connected.
transcendent.
Yeah.
But that, he
Yes.
he actually did a lot of commercials when he was younger and worked as an actor at the Denver Center,
That was a lot of fun. Yeah.
playing Tiny Tim.
Had to be Tiny Tim.
You had to be Tiny Tim.
Yeah.
He was
really,
and he was
really
tiny,
great.
but he was Tiny Ben.
That's true.
It's Tiny Ben.
That's true. I still, to this day, love reading A Christmas Carol. I read it aloud to my kids, and then I always get really choked up at the part where Tiny Tim, spoiler alert, dies in the story. Anyway, that was my first job, and then I had in high school I worked for the city of Lakewood.
Okay.
And I did that for all throughout high school, and that was a great job. We worked with the show wagon, which is a semi-trailer that folded out into a stage, and they would do concerts and stuff all
okay.
throughout the city. It was a total blast, and I learned a lot and ate a lot.
Probably some illegal stuff going on.
Probably, but not drugs or anything. Maybe we shouldn't. Illegal in the sense that probably an 18-year-old should not be driving a 20-foot box truck filled with propane tanks, kind of thing. I don't know what the statute of limitations is, so that's all hypothetical, obviously.
It didn't really happen.
Yes.
But no, when he came home from school, he said, "Hey, who was that?" That was
Parker.
Parker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Me and Parker got jobs. I went, "You're in 9th grade. What do you mean you've got a job?"
Yeah, that's pretty great. It's a sweet deal.
But he was used to working. So
Yes.
Yeah. But then what was your first job?
my first job was I was on Broadway starring in. No, I was not.
I was 2,
I
and
was 2. Yeah. No, I was just a little kid delivering newspapers for a whopping $1.80 a week.
week.
Paid in
Spender.
cash. Oh,
Nice.
I wonder if there's a statute of limitations on the tax thing there.
Oh, there you go.
Well,
No.
I don't know.
No,
If
no,
I
you're
had gotten
all
paid
right.
in cash,
You're okay.
it would have come in a little manila envelope with $1.80 written on it. I delivered 37 newspapers for years. It was horrible. Dogs chased me.
That's right.
Really did.
They really did.
It was
and,
the video game Paperboy.
and there
Yeah.
were wasps in all the newspaper boxes. So it was either fighting the wasps or the dogs.
Can't wait.
I'm damaged forever.
I bet. Yeah.
Where's your dog? I mean, I love dogs.
He's around here somewhere. He's
So,
taking a nap.
yeah, that was our first job. My first job. So I guess I was in the newspaper business.
There you go. You're in the newspaper
Technically.
business.
Yeah, that's
Technically.
true.
So you both served in the Air Force.
Mhm.
In what capacities?
Well, when I was in college, I was in ROTC, the Reserve Officer Training
Mhm.
Corps, and I had a pilot slot, and I was going to fly jets. But then just couldn't relate to like the culture in terms of, you know, the actual flyers. And not that Air Force pilots are bad or anything.
Mm-hmm.
They just weren't my tribe. So, you know, being an artist and studying theater and military stuff at the same time, I was kind of schizophrenic, I suppose. But my first job was in public affairs. So I was, you know, a media guy. I was a journalist and a writer. So I worked on a newspaper.
At papers. There we go.
Back
So
to
it always
papers
comes
again.
Back to the papers again.
That's true.
Stationed in England, which is where Ben was born. In England, we were going to leave him there, but they made us take him home.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that was in the early 80s, and then I got out and started working in theater professionally. And Ben decided he wanted to join the Air Force, not when he was releasing doves, but that may have been a trigger
I was
point.
like,
That's
I'm
right.
trying to come back to the doves.
All
some
about
point
the
here.
air, yeah.
Bird flying.
Aerodynamics? No, I don't know.
Either.
No, I joined the Air Force straight out of high school, and spent 6 years on active duty and was stationed in Virginia, and then also in my hardship tour in Hawaii. So that was rough.
Horrible.
Three
weather.
very long,
Terrible. We used to go and
wonderful
visit for
years
like
in
weeks.
Hawaii. No, it was a great time. My daughter, still to this day, will not wear shoes out of doors because she just figures why bother.
I
'Cause
understand her.
That's right.
She's my type of people.
There you go. She grew up not having to wear shoes. Yeah. So 6 years in the Air Force, and then after that, I came to work with my dad. And a few years later, I joined the Colorado Air National Guard. So I do the 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year thing.
Okay.
And so that's what I'm currently doing, and still have the opportunity to serve, which is pretty cool.
That's
Because
awesome.
when I went off active duty in 1983, he was like a year old. And then after a 17-year break in service, when he graduated from high school, I joined the reserve at the same time he went in active duty. So I
Oh,
figured
that's
it'd be
cool.
something fun that we could do together, right? Father and son.
Father
we can
and son.
protect the nation together, right? And then, of course, a year later it was 9/11. It was like, didn't see that coming,
Very
but
different experience, yeah.
it ended up I stayed in the reserve from that point on. So from 2000 to 2017 when I retired as a chief master sergeant, which probably doesn't mean anything to you, but
Oh, that's like.
it's the top of the
It's
enlisted
the
food
highest
chain.
enlisted
Yeah.
rank, yeah.
I was gonna say. I know
It's a
that's
big
like top-ish.
Kind of a lot of stripes, yeah. But it's a great job, and we still do some
Mhm.
work for the Air Force Reserve and do some training for them, which
Oh,
is
that's
really,
cool.
Yeah, it's
really
pretty
fun
cool.
for us. Keeps my fingers in the pie.
Okay, that's awesome. So, how did you each get started in doing video production?
Wow. I got started because I was an actor.
Right.
And
Don't
I
really
was
have
working-
an option. Everybody goes to production eventually, right?
Well, not everybody, but I was in theater, and theater was horrible hours and did a lot of great work, but it's just not great money either. It's not really conducive to raising a family. So I got an agent and was working on camera and doing, spokesman kind of work and television acting. And I thought, wow, I can produce theater. How hard can television be? You ever have a kidney stone? So I learned to do that, because I was a good writer. I got hired a lot doing that, and then I started producing, went back to school and studied the technology. And of course, Ben was growing up around that and hanging out on shoots and doing commercials and things like that. So I think that's kind of how I suckered him into it.
And I remember playing around with giant old VHS, cameras that weighed as much as I did. In middle school, they had, I went to Creighton Middle School, and there was an AV department. And so
That's cool.
they let us do like an orientation for the incoming 7th graders. And
Oh, that's cool.
so it was a blast. And I felt like, my inner Steven Spielberg come out, and I was like directing people.
But he's not Jewish.
No, but it's the directing part of Steven Spielberg. Anyway,
It's religious.
and then clearly not the goatee or beard, facial hair, anything at 12 years old. But I just really enjoyed that. And I guess, like from a directing standpoint, I remember directing my cousins I would make up plays and things like that at family reunions and whatnot. And
It's just in the blood.
And I would just boss people around. I think really what it was is I really liked bossing people around. That was
leadership skills. We like
yeah.
to call that.
That's what they call that. That's right.
Well,
probably more accurately bossing people around. But and then in high school too, I'd like to do that. A buddy of mine and I found an old 8mm film camera at a thrift store and like drove all the way to Boulder to get the film stock that we needed to record it and to use it to make a film, and we just do stupid things and record them, which is kind of what YouTube is now for the kids today. We didn't have YouTube growing up and Instagram and all that stuff. It was just
and you can do it on your phone now.
Doofus tube or something. I don't
Doofus
know.
tube.
That's
Doofus
what
film.
we did.
Oh, I remember still to this day the same thing with the 8mm silent movies because I'm so much older, and we would shoot these films. I'd make my sister be the cameraman, which she didn't really want to do, but I threatened to beat her up if she didn't do it. Nice. So she would shoot these films, and we'd shoot stuff in slow motion, and you could see my hand gestures like I'm directing her to tell her when to turn it on and turn it off. So this one time we were shooting on the front porch of my house. I grew up in Maryland, and I was doing this like comedy stunt pratfall, and so we were doing it in fast motion, which means it's actually better to do it that way because it's fewer frames per second, so you can get more action on the film. It's you shoot slow-mo, you get like a 5-second scene, you burned up your whole reel. So the stunt was I was going to run into the wall and then jump off the porch and fall. So I do that, and she's filming me the whole time, but when I jumped off the front porch, I hit my elbow on like a rock or something, and I'm on the ground writhing like this, and she's still rolling. She's like walking right up to me.
It's like, just like the opening scene of The Wonder Years, right? The
Right,
same kind of.
And I'm like, turn it off, and it's like I was, and then she finally turns it off, and it's like I still remember that. I was like, I couldn't believe that. She goes, well, I didn't know I was supposed to stop. I was like, the actor was in pain. I'm like,
she's like, I don't know if you're not. I don't know if you're.
That's right. That's really. You're
I think
really
she
good
wanted
actor.
to,
Maybe,
yeah. I think she wanted to be able to look back on it. Goes, that's great. My brother was hurt. It's payback.
So, how did you start Kimball Productions, and how did you guys end up doing this together?
That's a good question. That's a great question. I started it. I've been doing this for 25 plus years with the film and television stuff, and always kind of been a freelance and had different business partners and different structures over the years. And I basically spun off from another company in 2006 when Ben came off active duty. He had applied a bunch of places to get work in the defense contracting business, and nobody was hiring because they were all full up. So he said, well, maybe I could just work with you for a while until something shakes out. And I said, sure. Here's half the company. It's just like, if I don't give him half the company, my wife's like going, what are you doing? I said, well, if he's got this responsibility, personality, this trait of like, I just knew him well enough to know that if he was invested, like all in, then he would help make it grow. And he did. That's been 13 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you just kind of got coerced.
Yeah, well, I mean, that responsibility theme is really strong. So it
telling
was
people what to do.
Well, yeah, I love bossing people around. The promise of that was very encouraging.
And now he has children for that.
That's right. Yeah, that's
Yes.
true. My wife never really took any of my bossing aroundness. She just sort of
She
bosses
should be
me
here
around.
telling you stories.
Honestly. Anyway, no, it's for me, I think the challenge of coming out of the Air Force and then having to own half of a small company was a huge challenge that I totally was convinced that I could handle. And 13 years later, I could look back at past me and say, you aren't ready at all. but the good news is life stands ready to teach us all many, many lessons. And so some of those lessons I learned early on. And I like to think that I'm pretty adaptive and a pretty quick learner. So as the lessons come up, I try to embrace the
Mm-hmm.
learning and apply it and move on.
What were some of those big lessons for you?
So I think maybe one of the biggest ones in that first year was excellence is great, perfection is deadly.
Mm.
So
That's great.
from my perspective, every project had to be perfect. That was the standard. And I certainly didn't have the words then to be able to define the difference between excellence and perfect. So I would try to bring every project to 100% of the best I could do, and what the project deserved. And my dad, as the producer, would constantly be saying, "We need to get it out. We got to get it out. It's due now. It can't be.
It must be delivered.
We don't have to be perfect. We need to get it done." And so learning where done is,
Mm-hmm.
and you've heard any number of famous filmmakers talk about how a project is never complete, it's only ever abandoned. And that's,
I like that.
I feel like that's true across everything forever, that humans endeavor to do.
I think that's really true.
That's just, so for me, I think that was one of the biggest lessons was learning that difference. And I still wrestle with it occasionally,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm a lot better now at understanding what my clients' expectations are,
Right. Setting those
and
expectations.
making sure that we're landing within that range, because it's
Mhm.
never just a point. There's a range, and so if I can land slightly higher than they expected and on time, under budget, our clients seem to be pretty happy with that. And I would show you our balance book, and our QuickBooks seems to also reflect that seems to be a good approach,
Yes.
for running our business.
I like it. Never complete, just abandoned.
Yeah, right.
I think
Yes.
that's very true for everything. I am also perfectionist, so I find myself being like, but it's not the perfect. Okay, but it's good enough.
Right.
Like we can let go of the thing.
It meets the need.
Yeah.
It
meets the need.
it's doing what it was designed to do.
Right.
Out it goes.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that it's even really a matter of it being good enough, because I
Mhm.
think that puts you in a place too that you might, that might be a negative kind of
Mhm.
feeling at the
Mhm.
end of the day. It's like, oh, it's just good enough. I could have done better. Well, maybe, yeah, probably, or maybe not.
Yeah.
But certainly the abandonment that's like an emotional detachment, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
Oh, yeah,
but I love this, and I want it to be so right. It's like with my book, same thing. It's like,
Mhm.
I wanted to just keep noodling on it and rewriting and rewriting and rewriting and rewriting, and finally, my daughter-in-law, who was my book editor, she's like, "Dad, come on, it's got to get done." Like,
Yeah, we're on the deadline now.
so
Time to get it out.
yeah.
Awesome. So what have been, I'm actually going to jump around here, but what have been some of the greatest successes in building Kimball Productions for you guys?
That's a good question.
I think what Ben just talked about is probably one of the big things. I think clearly defining our roles,
Mm-hmm.
and staying in our lane, and drifting over or pulling over to the side when necessary to help with other things. But we complement each other. Hey, you look nice today. That's a great sweater you're wearing.
That's a fantastic beard.
Yeah,
Is what
thank
that
you.
is.
I grew that on my own.
That's not the compliment you're referring to.
No, but that's not the compliment I was referring to. So we complement each other. He's a very technical guy, a very post-it kind of guy, a little, tasking.
You go through a lot of post-it notes at the office.
and process.
Mhm.
Whereas I am, big picture, and I want to talk about the story, and I want to know about, where did you get that jewelry, and are those your slippers or someone else's, those kinds of things. And Ben's like, that's not helping us get down the road.
Mhm.
But between the two of us, we're moving those dual components, the content and the delivery mechanism. So I think learning to do that well,
Mhm.
and responding, trying not to respond to the tyranny
Mm-hmm.
of the urgent,
Mhm.
but still being, we're the military guys, so it's like a mission, and we need to accomplish accomplish that mission.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we do that in a reliable, efficient, timely manner? So those are things that I think over time we've learned to do that. And I think the other big thing that we've recently we've gotten really good at is handling those clients and being able to convey to them their part in the process,
Mm-hmm.
so that they feel valued in terms of the relationship. We feel valued, and that together we're going to collaborate and come up with a great project.
That's awesome. So what have been some of the greatest obstacles?
Big obstacles. I think one of the biggest obstacles that we face as a creative company
Mm-hmm.
is successfully communicating our value to our clients.
Yep.
And I think, as I think back over the years, the most stressful or upsetting times that we might have had in the business has been where our perception of our own value
Mm-hmm.
and our client's perception of our value did not match.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for a long time, I know I carried that as a personal diss on me,
Mm-hmm.
which it's really hard to separate out what I do from who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so overcoming that obstacle is yet again a whole nother discussion.
Mm-hmm.
But being able to have a conversation and address those potential concerns with a client as it's hard. And I think we've gotten a lot better at sniffing that out at the outset of a
Mm-hmm.
conversation, just trying to figure out if we're a good fit. A lot of times if clients are looking for, a button pusher who's going to just do what they need done, and then they just don't know how to push the buttons. They don't know what the software is, but they're just going to ride, herd over you, and they want you to just turn off your brain, turn off the human part of you, and just do the machine things. That's not a good fit for us. We are exceedingly talented technically,
Mm-hmm.
but the thing that excites us the most is, like you talked about in the intro, is we love to tell stories that inspire wonder.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, being able to bring what makes us human
Mm-hmm.
to our clients and then draw out what's human in them, it usually comes out as the passion that's behind what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I can make a video about the what, and that's, can be interesting. There are shows like How It's Made, like that's the what.
Yeah,
And then it's
so
like,
cool.
what do you do to turn this thing into that thing?
Mhm.
Really great shows. Totally love those shows. But what we get excited about is finding that passion and uncovering that with our clients so that they can share the passion that they have
Mhm.
with the world. And then we know all the technical buttons and things to push to do that. But the core of it is that story piece.
I love it. So you guys are in the business of telling stories, and you do that through short stories, commercials, corporate videos, all of that. What are some of your favorite projects? Just give me like one or two.
I'd have to say one of my favorite things to do is what I did yesterday with a client. This is even before we got started on it. And this is just a potential client right now who owns a yoga studio. And she's trying to figure out, how do I tell that story?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can tell the story of like, well, we offer these different kinds of yoga classes, and we'll inform you of those classes, and here's where we're located, and I'll be doing the teaching, and I have other teachers, and we have these times available, and come on in. So that's one way of doing it. More interesting way to do that is to tell the story in a way that is a compelling, emotional story about yoga and how it transforms somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So the effect of coming to the yoga class rather than the actual class itself. So that's just a great joy for me to sit and brainstorm with the client, because you could see on her face, she was like, I never thought of that. It's like, yeah, I mean, it would be like, who's your client? What do you want? She deals with elderly people and goes into these care homes, and
Oh, that's cool.
and that's really cool. And it's like, I would love to see, footage of her working with these people and how they feel better and how excited they are, and maybe they can ballroom dance again, which they wouldn't have been able to do because of the yoga or whatever that story is. So mining the story is really a great joy for me. And thinking about some of the...
Well, I was just thinking about one of my favorite things, and it's hard for me to pick a favorite, which sounds like that's silly. Like, surely there's one or two favorites. I mean, some come to mind. There's some pretty cool opportunities we've had. We got to go to NHRA drag race and interview Tony Schumacher.
That's cool.
And a number of other racers, and just be in the pits when they were doing a turnover. Unbelievable experience. The nitro fuel that they use totally burns your eyes like you can't believe when you're that close. I don't really know how I even was able to get focus on the camera, but those, some really fun times there. But when I think about it, every single project, we try to find one thing about that project that's exciting for us.
Right.
And what it is that gets us going on that project. So, because some of the projects are arguably not very exciting. But when we can unlock that piece of whatever it is, that passion that helps, that gets our client excited, when we get them excited, that's when it's exciting for us.
And the stories are impactful on their own, right?
Right.
Create impact in somebody's life somehow.
Right, and it's not manipulative in as much as, some people think, well, why would you choose to take an emotional tack on a particular approach to conveying information about a yoga studio or whatever. Well, the truth is people respond to that. I mean, it's like the, I'm a PC, I'm a Mac campaign where there was nothing. There was sometimes no equipment at all, but it was the personification of the emotional context of owning one over the other.
Right.
And that, we look for those kinds of opportunities, and sometimes we get to do it and sometimes we don't. I think the most fun we have is when we travel we do a lot of work in the medical industry, and that can be really interesting and kind of creepy. Like, oh, didn't want to know about that. But, we go to conferences around the world, which is really fun. So we get to travel internationally and go to some exciting places, because doctors like to go to exciting places to talk to each other.
That's right.
Yeah. Right. So we do these little setups and shoot video, and they talk about their latest and greatest treatments. And then we go off and make a little video, like a travelogue video of our visit. We did one film in London. We were there for a shoot, and we basically wanted to shoot all of the sites as we went and saw them, but then we created this little story that went along with that, and that was fun. That didn't make us any money, but it was fun. It was enjoyable.
We liked it. It's a little bit more exciting for us than just going back and looking through our pictures. We got a 7 or 8 minute short film that we can watch and remember the same things that we would if we had just looked at our pictures, but we're part of it, and it reminds us of
a chance to practice some skill sets too.
So you guys actually focus on short films mostly, right?
So yeah,
I noticed most of your credits are shorts.
Right. Yeah.
Why shorts?
Well, because they're less expensive than features.
Good to know. I was just curious.
Because they're short?
Right.
Yeah, and because they're short, because they tell a story.
Well, right. The Mark Twain was the one that apologized. He says, "I'm sorry I didn't write a shorter letter. I didn't have the time." And so shorter films require a little bit more work in terms of how do you tell that in that compressed amount of time.
Yes.
The more time you have, the more you can kind of just play with ideas. So we love that sort of focus that a short film gives us.
Well, and like you were talking about earlier, the idea that this is practicing skill sets that we would use to create a feature-length film. So our goal and our desire is to create feature-length films that tell stories that inspire wonder. That's where we're headed.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that's the trajectory we're on. And in the meantime, bills have to be paid and people have to eat. And so we get to help. That's right. They do. And so right now we get to help those people tell their stories until we can support ourselves enough to be able to tell our own stories.
Is the feature film going to be the book?
So we've talked about that. It's funny, we've gone back and forth about, should it be a feature film? Should it be a series?
What are you talking about? Oh, let me
The
look.
book, yes.
That's right. Oh, we
Show
didn't
us
even
the
talk
book,
about that.
please.
Let
That's
me
right.
see if it was on the bookshelf.
That's right. Oh,
It is actually on the bookshelf.
It is.
There.
It
is. Your daughter read it. Well, it's a bunch of short stories, so we haven't decided. I mean, it could be like The Wonder Years, a bunch of short little films. Essentially, that's what a series is.
Mhm.
And I've adapted one of the stories, the Mother's Flying Frying Pan, into a short film. More of an episode, probably, than a short film. It's about 20 some odd pages, so that'd be about a broadcast half hour. Usually 1 minute of screen time is equivalent to 1 page of formatted screenplay.
So I think we're going to produce that and then decide from that, what audiences really want to see. I mean, nowadays, short form is really like all the rage. People want to binge
Yeah, we like things
rather than,
bite sizes.
Right.
it's not like this is Marvel comics or, some sort of superhero. It's just a kid that, does dumb things and doesn't
Like so
die.
many kids.
Yeah,
Like-
like all the kids.
All kids we know, including my own grandchildren.
Mhm.
But anyway, yeah. So and then we've got my nephew works in Hollywood. His day job is he does videos for UCLA and he produces the online content for courses. And he's a screenwriter, and he and his partner have written a short film that we're going to produce in the spring here,
Fun.
which is pretty exciting. And it's a drama, film noir kind of. I don't know, what did we decide the genre was?
Oh,
A dude with a problem.
that's right. Yeah. From the Blake Snyder
Yeah.
list of genres.
I
A
love
dude
it.
with
Yeah.
a problem.
A dude with a
Dude
problem.
with a problem. He's got a problem.
But
Oh,
that
come see.
there are a lot of people in Denver who are extremely talented and that want to participate too and use that as an opportunity, because it's not going to be moneymaker for any of us, but it could be something that could do well in festivals because of the nature of a dramatic piece, and so because of the genre, I think it's got some potential.
So each of you have a ton of credits, from acting to narrating murder mystery stuff. Can you just tell me a little bit about your favorite roles? I even saw like video games stuff. I was very confused. How does that work?
Yeah.
You guys were
That's
video
right.
game actors.
I
That
was
was
a
the-
video
know
game
about
actor.
that
I
work.
forgot
So,
about that.
all right.
Page Master, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Page Master. I was. It was a not great movie that came out
Macaulay Culkin.
a long time ago. Macaulay Culkin
Oh,
and
really?
Christopher Lloyd was in it.
I know.
And I never got to meet either one of them because I sounded kind of like Macaulay Culkin when I was 10. I got to be the voice of Macaulay Culkin, much more affordable than
Sure.
actual Macaulay Culkin. So,
Well, that movie was about a kid who became a cartoon and then came back to live. So start out live action,
Right.
went to cartoon, and so they just turned it into a video game.
and the video game was, it was really early on PC gaming, and it was remarkable for what it was at the time. Today, you'd look at it and be like, this is not even as good as the lamest free app I can get on my phone for a video
It's
game.
like
But
27 years ago.
it was a blast, and I definitely had a great time telling all my friends at school, yeah, I'm the voice of Macaulay Culkin in a video game. Like, I'm pretty cool. It did not incidentally get me any dates or girlfriends or anything
No,
other
that's
than
true.
I think I did definitely get some wedgies out
Yeah,
of it.
no direct correlation. there.
Yeah, but that was a fun time. So would I lend my voice to video games in the future? Yes, absolutely. Anybody interested in a semi-nerdy sounding guy,
Call that.
millennial flavored voice, I'm totally in. Call me.
I can kind of do Ben's voice.
There you go. Yes. Favorite role though? Favorite
Oh,
role.
for me, it was getting to play with Dick Van Dyke in a
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
made for TV. It was the pilot to the, I called it Dr. Sloan Medicine Man, but it wasn't called that. It was Diagnosis Murder. And Dick Van Dyke was shooting it in Colorado this is right after Perry Mason and the Father Dowling series that was based here in the 80s and early 90s. And I got to play this bookie and shoot with Dick Van Dyke for a day, which was pretty exciting. He was a childhood hero of mine, right? But this guy was I learned so much about acting just working with him with one day.
That's really cool.
So in one day, it was just remarkable to see him where he was chewing gum. He just quit smoking. He's like chewing gum and singing songs between takes. And then Jerry London directed and he goes, "Oh, okay, I'm ready." So, "You ready, Dick?" He goes, "Yeah." And it completely changed. He was like, what happened to the guy that was just like, we're all trying to like catch up with him. It was a good day. I loved the theater. I missed the theater. I missed doing live performances. I did a one-man show, played John Wilkes Booth, which was really a cool play to do. And, a lot of murder mystery shows and musicals over the years. And Shakespeare. Closest that I get to Shakespeare now is directing the kids in my grandchildren's school. And these are like 4th and 5th graders and junior high kids in hilarious. Shakespeare. Mm-hmm. And you know what? They are really serious about it and dedicated, in many ways more dedicated than a lot of actors I worked with over the years. But yeah, it's a lot of fun to be able to do that.
That's awesome.
I think probably Tiny Tim.
Yeah, obviously you're just getting verklempt talking about it over here.
I got to play Bob Cratchit, but not to his
That's
Tiny
right.
Tim.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No. It was just an amazing time for 10-year-old me to be in a professional theater company with professional actors.
And get to die every night.
And just really, and get to die every night. I had to lay real still. That was probably one of my favorites. So playing Nathan Detroit in Guys and Dolls in high school was also a total blast. It was just, what a fun role. Just really good time.
You got a horse right here?
Yeah, his name is Paul Revere.
I thought so.
All right, so next projects for Kimball Productions.
Well, we're in the middle of a busy season right now with our continuing medical education. One of the cool places we get to go to, we're going to San Francisco this coming weekend, but we get to go to Copenhagen in March.
Oh, very cool.
Which is real exciting. I've never been there. But fun projects. The next big one is this short film called Oboe, written by Paul Kimball. But so that's a couple of the things that we're working on. And Ben's working on some screenplays.
Oh, sweet.
Some feature films and working on it. One of them is a historical present day mashup. So a character from the past visits someone in the present, which probably sounds like thousands of different plot lines that exist. But that ties into to the school where my kids go, which is heavily based on the educational philosophy of a British educator. Oh. And so I think it'd be really fun to hear what she has to say about educating kids in today's world.
Oh, that's really cool.
Be an interesting fictional story based on some historical truth there.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's like a teacher from modern day failing at teaching, but then she calls on this, the ghost of Christmas past kind of thing. But she's not a ghost. She's like comes and visits her in her classroom and kind of coaches her on the side. Nobody can see her but the teacher. It's a really fun idea.
I love it.
Mm-hmm. And then maybe we'll get to this year.
That's right. Yeah, we're hopeful to get
I was referring to the book.
To filming the.
That's how I remember
the first
whole
episode.
Book?
Yeah.
The full title is "Okay, Maybe It Didn't Happen Exactly Like That," but that's how I remember it, because every story ends with, "Okay, maybe it didn't happen exactly like that," but that's how I remember it. So,
I love it.
Anyway.
All right. So before I ask my last question, where or what is the easiest way for people to find you?
Well, we're here now.
Well, I mean, you're here now, but if they wanted to come,
Oh, later.
Later.
And afterward, we're not going to be here all the time.
No, you do have to leave.
We don't have to go home, but we
you
can't
just can't stay here.
Yeah, can't stay here.
So the easiest way to find us is at Kimball Productions. Our website is kimballpro.com.
Okay.
And we're also on Facebook, which we don't ever update.
Full disclosure.
I think there's a Twitter.
Potentially.
Twitter something or another out there.
Yeah, hashtag Tom Kimball or whatever.
I don't think you're a hashtag. I don't think you're your own hashtag. I think you'd be at Tom Kimball. But I don't know if that's your.
I don't
we'll get you some stuff.
Oh,
so
yeah.
we can know how to find us. Yes.
Okay. So, in your opinion, if you could talk to every business owner on the planet, what story should they be telling?
That's an easy one. Their story. nobody has
Same story.
the same story. Every person has their own unique story. There's a reason that you walked the path you walked to get here, and there's gold in that story. I would encourage every business owner to think about it from the perspective of if they were interviewing themselves, if they were to think about, an outside perspective on why do I do the things that I do? Well, let me ask myself, why do you drink coffee at 3 a.m. and then, check your stocks and do these sorts of things?
You have a very, valid metaphor. And when you say there's gold in it, that requires mining. I mean, you can't get the gold by going, I'm just going to sit here and will it out of the quartz. It's not going to happen.
It does take some effort.
It takes some effort. And, I go back to the story I told earlier with this woman who owns the yoga company. It was really fun to see her discover on her own face. Like, she was like, oh, yeah, because she told me how she started out working in social work. So she was a person that had an empathetic kind of personality anyway, loves people, wants to help people. And then she got into yoga on a personal level and then figured out that that was something that she could bring to other people, but hadn't made necessarily that connection. So I think, if there's a distinctive, for us, it's like if you take that time, that think time, and ponder those ideas, you'll discover that you have, no matter if you're the same, I'm a real estate guy and I'm selling real estate. Yep, I'm a real estate guy and I'm selling real estate too. What's unique about you? Well, I was raised by my grandparents and I just love helping elderly people. And so that's the unique story. So that's now all of a sudden it's focusing that business owner on really, truly who their clients are, who their best customer is. But you have to talk it out. If they could call you and ask, you would tell them, wouldn't you?
Maybe.
They could come on your show.
That's right.
And then they would discover.
That's what they would figure out.
Well, and that's part of that's the big reason I do this, because I love to talk to business owners. Right. And like, why do you do what you do? What are you, what are you facing right now?
Have you had people discover that on the show? Like, while they're talking to you, like, oh, I didn't know that about myself.
I don't think we've had any of those moments yet, but now I want to.
There you go.
We're going to work on that.
All right.
Well, I didn't know I liked tea so much.
There you go. It's the best tea ever.
It is.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Hey y'all, thanks for listening. If you found this podcast to be inspiring, helpful, and entertaining, please like and subscribe. This helps us grow the community and reach more people. If you are interested in learning more about this episode's guest or accessing any of the books or other resources mentioned in this episode, be sure to check out the description box below. Until next time, be abundant.